Rene, you want to introduce?
No, because I'm not sitting down.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are here checking out the Keeping Up with the Nerds booth, please welcome Emmy Award winner who worked on 1997's Spawn that was featured on HBO, Chuck Patton. Come on down, Chuck.
You guys scared him.
Too much.
You guys scared him.
I didn't do it. I swear to God.
All good, all good. Oh, we got the White Ranger down. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's
No.
fine. It's fine. You know what? Think of it as like a Tonight Show glitch, right?
I never liked that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Chuck,
Rangers, bah.
how have you been, Chuck?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah? How you
Yes.
liking the festival so far?
It's been a blast. It's been nuts. I'm glad I can keep up. Wow.
It's busy.
It's
People
been
are walking.
busy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been busy. You saw I had to, escape.
Yeah.
So this is good.
I got
I'm glad.
I got an interview.
Listen,
Gotta
it's better
go.
than, it's better to be called a lot than not be called at all. So
No, that's 100% true.
I'm happy
So
about that.
I got a question for you because I
Yes,
think
sir.
I mentioned this before. I've interviewed you once at Whittier Comic Fest.
Yes, you did.
I think I asked you, I'm like, is it okay for me to call, say like, oh yeah, you wanted Emmy Award winner Chuck Patton and all this other stuff. Does it ever get old for you or no?
My older brother told me once I told him that now I have to tell people, I can't just say I'm Chuck Patton. I have to say Emmy Award winning Chuck Patton.
It's a title, right?
It's a title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't want to say it, but yeah, you're 100% right. It's like it's basically like doctor.
Yes,
But
it is.
Emmy Award
It's
winner
like a
Chuck.
doctor, yeah.
Yes.
You never get rid of it. It's like the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
Once
exactly.
you're elected, you're there for life.
That's all people know you for.
Right.
So let me ask you this, because
Yes.
you won the Emmy for 1997's Todd McFarlane's Spawn. That
I think
was
it was
on HBO.
99, but
Was it 99 or-
I know they started Spawn around that time, maybe
Yeah.
96. I know it took us a long time. My memory is that it was a 99 Emmy.
Yeah.
So
yes.
anyway.
Yeah. I was looking that up. I'm like, the show premiered in 97,
Right.
but you won the
Yeah,
Emmy
yeah,
in
yeah.
99.
Oh yeah, it was definitely
Yeah.
99. Yeah.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about that experience? How you got into working in that?
It was not as over and done with. It was a pretty intense moment because it was started by Eric Rondowski, who also started Batman animated series, and it was his kind of first time being his own man with his own design without Bruce Timm. So it was his vision.
Yeah.
And they did a great job, except that the truth was unless you do this stuff and figure things out, you're gonna have a lot of holes missing. And so there was a lot of that. And again, also, not to, because I gotta be careful. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we did better than them. No, they're breaking new ground. There was no American serious adult animation in that style, and these guys broke the mold. Closest was Batman the animated series, which never was adult, but that's how they approached it.
It had adult themes, but it wasn't
Yeah.
explicit enough that it could be considered adult.
Well, the
I
mandate on
feel-
Batman animated, because there's been so many action adventure superheroes do anything but what they were doing before.
Exactly.
So that already set it apart. So here was Spawn going, okay, whatever they did in Batman the animated series, we're not doing. And so that was a struggle for them because everybody had either came from that. And again, you're like, okay, what are we doing? And then also Todd has specifics of what he wanted that to look like. And he already been kind of burned on the live action movie. I
Yeah.
can say that out loud. We all know the live action Spawn was not as well received.
Could have been better.
No, not at all.
Honestly,
Just no.
I'm glad you guys said that. Yeah. What did Rene say? What did you?
No,
like,
not at all.
I
I
thought
was
you
like,
said it blows. It blew. It blew.
Yeah, it did.
So, but it's that thing. It shouldn't have. The actors, everybody came into it with a good heart. Even the director, it wasn't his fault. It's just that he was a special effects guy, and he never really helmed a film before. This is the first time. When you're a first-time director, you're gonna get all the things you imagine and not imagine happen to you.
Yeah.
So in a way, Spawn the animated series had the advantage of, okay, here's Spawn the live action movie. We ain't doing that. We're gonna go a lot more mysterious, a lot more noir. Also paying attention to the animation. Again, we're not doing action. We're not doing the same thing with Batman, where we worry about movement and action. How many times he punched a guy? Spawn was horror.
Yeah.
So a lot of that was brought to it, but again, no real main criticism. it was new for everybody. So there were some things that worked and some things that didn't. And then even the script was even difficult to do.
It was, and I think because I recently rewatched the animated series, and I noticed
I'm so sorry.
It's interesting. I will say this:
Yeah.
I appreciate shows or even movies that don't make the intros linger.
Yeah.
And that show didn't do that. It's the story of this guy. He's
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
Here's what happens. And
Yeah,
it
we
gets
changed.
straight
The
to
rules
the
were
point.
changed.
Yeah.
And long story short, let's just say that Todd, the writers, because they went through a lot of writers, they finally got a strong, I would say, show running writer who was, again, more adept at live action than animation. And so there was a lot of clash of heads and a lot of disappointment. And the worst was that here was Todd going, guys, I want everybody on this together. And we actually had a civil war.
Mhm.
I had seen something I'd never seen before. People jumped ship.
Really?
They left.
Wow.
They either stayed and sabotaged or they refused to work and were let go. So HBO, who was 100% always on us, very supportive, decided we're not going to kill this show. We like it, we want it, but we need to change direction. So we got a new guy in. The guy who they brought in was a guy named Frank Parr, who is also an alumni of Batman the animated series, but also he had done X-Men Evolution, Gargoyles,
Oh, wow.
and Frank is versatile as hell. And he saw this and thought, okay, first thing we got to do is sit with Todd and go, what do you want? Because strangely enough, the guys previously stopped doing that. So
I do want to revisit something that you
Yeah,
said, because we've talked to exhaustion about TMNT. And if you guys want to check that out, there's a YouTube video that you guys can check out when we interviewed Chuck Patton at Whittier Comic Fest. But I feel like there's topics that you and I were talking about off camera
Right.
when it comes to telling a story in animation. And it feels like you were telling me how there's certain animations or animated series where they are too dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
you look at it and be like, well, this isn't animation, because what are they showing? It's just them standing and the mouth moving like this, and that's that. And then you blew my mind today when you were talking about how when you were directing being the animation director for TMNT, how you have this sequence where a turtle will be fighting on the floor or in the ground and then duck and someone comes up from over the top.
Yeah, it was choreography.
It's the
Yeah.
choreography.
Yeah.
And those things really do make an impact
Yeah.
when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there a reason or is there some way that you do approach that? Like that sort of
Yes.
sequence?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing it?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost two questions there. Because again, Spawn wasn't about, we got to make everything cool. Well, that's not how we put it. Todd would say that, but he meant something else, which was, how do we take this subject and make this interesting? So we had to learn a new technology, a new vocabulary with Todd. He'll say, let's make this cool. And it goes, okay, this is kind of cool or that kind of cool. And then you go, okay. And goes, okay, this is what you do. And what Frank and I would do was sit back and go, okay, we got what he wants. So what are we going to do? And this is when Frank introduced to me being cinematic. And again, that was a little nod from Batman the Animated Series, because in a lot of ways they went cinematic, meaning they looked at old film noir stuff and approached the stories with shadows and stuff. And then I'm looking at Spawn and go, okay, we need that, but also what makes horror horror? To me, Spawn is horror.
It is.
It's not a superhero thing.
No.
So let's find that what works in horror, sneak that sucker in there. And
Yeah.
that's what we did. Frank guided me and I followed him, and that's where we went with it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you said that it is horror, because
Yeah.
yes, like if you look at something like Batman, right?
Yeah.
Batman can be made into horror because it's a man, like a vigilante hiding in the shadows. You
Yeah.
don't know he's there.
Yeah.
And Spawn does have those similarities, but it's a lot scarier.
Big difference too is that we know Batman's a man.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And as much as he's still a guy.
Yes.
Here's Spawn, where, the big trick in the story that Todd blew my mind on was that this was about more than good and evil.
Yes.
It's what happens in the middle. Who's the guy that helps the guys in the middle?
Yes.
Spawn wasn't interested in beating God. He wasn't interested in beating Satan, but he was interested in protecting victims because he was a victim himself.
Yes.
He was born from that. he became what he was because of being victimized.
Yes.
In life, and he became kind of like, well, he was a killer, and he realized how much he was a tool. So being Spawn was him going, F being a tool. And that's when we went, okay, so we got to gear our stories and his powers showing that.
Yeah.
So that changed our approach to storytelling.
Yes. And there was a quote. So again, you blew my mind with a bunch of conversations that we've had. Who was the writer for, and I know you mentioned this earlier. He wrote The Killing Joke.
Oh, that's Alan Moore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think there was a quote that he had when Jim Lee was interviewing him, and he said, "A villain is just a misunderstood hero."
Yeah.
And you came out with me today and you said, the best way to write a character is to see him broken.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was word for word how you said it, but you did say
I think I kind of alluded that way. I
Yeah.
didn't say, we had so many other things we're talking
Yeah.
about.
But
that was one of them. Yeah.
It was an interesting take on it
Yeah.
because yes, like if you show a character being as broken as possible,
Yeah.
the build up process back to that, it's
Yeah.
kind of like that redemption arc, right? You're
Yeah.
getting to see a new journey.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you do see that similarities with Spawn.
Oh, totally.
Because it's a man who's
Totally.
unhinged.
Totally.
He's already dead. So what does he have to lose?
Yeah.
He's trying to right the wrongs that were committed with no consequence. And what does that look like?
That changed the writing for Todd, as well as the writer we had came off of, I think it was NYPD Blue,
Uh-huh.
which one of the strange reasons we got him was because like, oh, this dude's writing heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to put into the writing. We didn't want guys who just did cartoons a week, you
Yeah.
know? We wanted someone who had, again, a theme and understood darkness and stuff. And that's what we wanted to bring out in Spawn.
Yeah.
And so between him and Todd working out the stories, then Frank and I were then guided in how to make this work visually.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. We had to go between the cracks in the script and bring out all the storytelling things.
Yeah.
Like we got to where, you know, with talks from Todd was like, you know what? Who cares if he's wearing a belt around his thigh? We're not going to see that anymore. You're not going to see his feet. You're going to hear the chains before you see the chains. We started getting this visual, you know, vocabulary on how to tell this story without falling to the same stuff you've seen over and over again. This wasn't Batman.
No,
He
it
doesn't
wasn't.
have a bat signal in the sky. But we did do a thing when you hear rattling chains and didn't see him, you knew he was in the room.
The Grim Reaper boogeyman kind of
Yeah,
look
with
to
the
it.
things with the eyes
Yeah.
and stuff with that story. And then we got to also play with how to see Spawn when he's not there. How do you keep him in the focus in the story? And that's through the people around him. So Sam and Twitch. Again, I wasn't a big fan of the book, so I didn't know. So we rediscovered this stuff in the show where we realized Sam and Twitch is sort of an extension of him.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. It wasn't them. It wasn't like the fugitive. Oh, we're gonna get Spawn. They would say that outwardly, but that's not how we played it.
Yeah.
And that got to be fun.
So let me pick your brain a little bit here,
All right,
right?
pick my brain.
As
I don't know
someone,
if this music's picking my brain, but we'll see what happens. I'm going.
let's just
Jim,
ignore the music.
I'm
Look,
losing my
it's-
mind
It's
listening to
just,
this stuff.
it's just an intimate moment between you and I. That's all it is. We don't need to pay attention to that. That's all good.
It's all good.
But you were an animation director for
Yeah.
Spawn,
Yeah.
and you also did it for TMNT, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, with TMT, I was in Frank's position where I called the shots on everything.
Yeah.
I was a director under Frank, and he graciously made me like his left arm.
Yeah.
And on TMT, it was just me.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this idea in film, right? And I'm looking at it from a film perspective because that's my study. So
Okay.
from a film perspective, there's a lot of directors that come in and say film should be more show than tell. You can have a character sit in a desk and tell you the entire story no one's going to care about.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so their whole goal is to show you the actions that happen. And I feel the same way could happen in animation because you are right. You said that in Spawn, there was this idea of this looks cool, so let's make this happen. But you have to approach it in a way that's not going to be too over exaggerated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you were to give advice to someone and say like, okay, I'm trying to get into animation, do all this, what would be the best angle to approach a show and don't tell scenario?
Okay. I'm gonna simplify it.
Okay.
Tell the damn story. Learn to tell a story.
Okay.
And that means learn to tell a story. The greatest story told to me by Jim Shooter, which I used to make fun of. And then I thought about it and goes, damn, he's right. If you can take Little Miss Muffet and make it interesting dramatically, just by retelling it. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet. eating whatever the hell she's eating. All of a sudden, spider! What does the spider do? Spider's coming at her. She screams. She steps on it. Spider's dead. Little Miss Tuffy goes home. I just changed that, but I got you interested.
Spider
What made
has a
her become
family.
a killer?
Spider has a family. It's out for vengeance.
Spider could have a family. Spider's son goes, my mom was killed by Miss Tuffet. Spends the next 5 years honing his skills with spider webs and deadly venoms to track down Miss Tuffet.
And then we get a John Wick-esque Miss Muffin
But
story.
you know what I just did there?
You explain to me.
I told a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I built it with character. And I kept you interested. And it isn't just little Miss Tuffet sat on the Tuffet. All of a sudden, I got you involved. Once we killed the spider and said, oh shit, she should be scared. But it's just, she has a family. And they're coming after Miss Tuffet. Now we got another story. That's Act 2.
Yeah.
So now you gotta start telling the story in a way that brings you all the way to Act 3. What's gonna happen in Act 3? The greatest lesson I've ever learned, and I forgot who taught me, but I now make it mine.
Yeah.
The greatest lesson any story tells you is, then what happened?
You want more.
You want more.
You want more.
You want to know how it ends.
So,
If Act 2 sucks, why am I going to sit here and wait for Act 3?
and that makes sense.
How many movies have we gone through that? But
Yeah.
a good movie makes you sit there and go, I want to speed through this. I want to get to the end.
You want your first act to set up your second act, and your second act to keep you invested into your third act.
All in all, it isn't that A to B to C. It is, and yet long story short, engage the person from beginning, middle, and the end. How you pay it off is going to make them feel like that was worth it. Why everybody got their mind blown when they watched Memento is they had no idea that they had watched the end of the movie first. Until they got to the end of the movie and realized, oh my God, this is how it started. This is what he was doing. And that's what blew people away. But what it was telling the story. He found a unique way to tell this story other than like Little Miss Muffet. What happened if we started Little Miss Muffet like dead spider, girl's shoe, tiny spider in the corner going, Mama!
Yeah,
And
no,
then
I
we
get
move
you.
backwards. So anyway,
Yeah,
again, the trick with all this is learn, whether it's in comics, whether it's in movies, whether it's television, is learn to tell the story. Be a storyteller. I'm not an animator, I'm a storyteller.
And that's a perfect way to see it.
Yeah.
We will have to wrap up this interview pretty soon, but I have
Sure,
one
no.
more question to ask you because on our website at keepingitwiththenerds.com,
Okay.
if you guys haven't checked it out yet, there are bios of every guest that we've interviewed here. I was reading your quote, the
Which
very
one?
end. The very end. Which one was it? There's a quote at the very end where I asked you the question of like, if you wanted to give advice to people who are wanting to get into it.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because I appreciate advice that's very true. Anyone can say like, go ahead and go do it. Go ahead and give it a try. But the way that you worded it, which was, and I might be wording it incorrectly, but saying, don't treat it as a hobby. It's more like you got to see it as a job.
It's your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to start it and then finish it and then do it over again. And I think it's 100% true. Because a hobby, you can make time for it and then leave it there for like 6 months and never come back to it. But a job, it's a dedication to it,
It's
right?
a dedication.
Mhm.
It's a focus. It's a commitment.
Yeah,
And if you're committed to the job of getting it done, you're committing to the end. You're committing to the story.
exactly.
You believe in it. If you don't finish it, that says you don't believe in it or yourself. I'd rather see a bad story finished, all completed, because I know that if he's good enough and does it again, he'll learn from that.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, and that commitment is what makes one an artist. When I say it wasn't a hobby, it's funny you should say that because your question was, if someone's to get into this, in this business as a hobby, and I went, no, you got to separate it. Business is this. This is who you are. This is what you go towards. A hobby is something you do when you're bored. A hobby is something you do when you got nothing else
When
to
you
do.
have that extra time.
But that has nothing to do with art. That has nothing to do with being a storyteller, telling your life, having a focus. And again, there's nobody in yourself even that says, okay, I got to get this done.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. I do.
So that's what I
yeah.
meant with my quote.
I do appreciate advice, and I feel like people do need to see that because,
Yeah.
it is difficult. It does come natural to some people, but I think if you see it as a job and stay committed to it,
It's
you
a
will.
4-letter word called work. And if you're not willing to work, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's the most successful people are those who continue to work.
Definitely, 100%.
So,
Chuck, before we wrap it up,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
can people find you? Do you have any social media?
Yes, I do. I have an Instagram and a Facebook. Both are under Chuck Patton Art. Also Twitter, which I go to occasionally so I can see people's ideas about movies. I don't care about the politics. I don't care about who they don't like. I don't care.
You're just there for the creative.
I find stuff that's, oh man, that's a movie I haven't seen, or a song I haven't heard, or artists, young artists who inspire me from what they're doing. That's what I use Twitter for.
Yeah.
The other stuff, no thanks.
No, 100%.
So,
And if you guys are interested in learning more about Chuck Patton, please check out our website at keepingupwiththenerds.com. There's a section that says SFS Art Fest. There's a profile of Chuck with all the questions that we asked you earlier,
Oh, yeah,
and
I
as well
can't
as the
find
social
it,
media.
but-
Yeah. I'll show you afterwards. But
Cool,
Chuck,
cool.
thank you so much for joining
Thank
me here
you,
on stage.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
This was
Guys,
fun. I
thank
thought
you.
you guys are gonna like go nuts on me or something.
No,
you know?
no. We're civil, okay?
Ask me who's my favorite rabbit, you know? Bugs
What
or the other
is
guy.
your favorite animal and what color?
Actually, I like honey badgers.
Honey.
Honey badgers are badass. If I was to do a show right now, it's a passion of mine. If I was gonna do a 2D show, I'll call it, honey badger. Period.
Just leave it that.
And it'll be honey badgers going through the world, kicking ass. Honey badger goes to a cornfield. I want corn. Dog stops him. Kill the dog. Honey badger's happy. Bunches of dogs come at him. Does honey badger run? No. Honey badger goes, I don't care because I'm a honey badger. And that's her fighting word.
So
And
what
by
we'll
the
do
way, it's
now-
a female.
What we'll do now is not release
Sorry,
this
that was
for like a
exciting.
week or two.
Thank you.
Give you that idea, like
Thank
let you
you.
build on that idea, so
Thank
that
you.
way no one takes it,
Right.
and then you can make
And
your
then
own
next
show.
week on Netflix, you guys are going to be presenting the show, and I'm at home going, that was mine.
What
That was
we
mine.
wrote? We just did this. You
I
know.
got it near me.
We'll
So-
give you an executive producer credit on there.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
there
you.
go. There.
See how happy I am? I'll be good. I'll be good.
Chuck, thank you so much. Ladies and
Thanks,
gentlemen,
man.
thank you so much for joining us here
Thanks,
on stage.
guys.
We got plenty more interviews, so stay tuned. We'll be interviewing a couple more guests.